Guys, so we're going to look at the memo or work through activity 7. This is nice general ledger revision or an explanation of what happens in the general ledger. So maybe not pertaining to this activity necessarily, but the rules and the processes that we follow is really important here. So if we have a look, we are going through activity 7, Looney Tune Traders. And we have a CRJ of Looney Tune Traders as well as a CPJ of Looney Tune Traders. So Looney Tunes Traders has the following balances for November. Record the balances in the general ledger and post the information given in the CRJ and CPJ to the general ledger. Do not forget to balance the accounts. Now, if we look at our balances, they've given us a balance for capital, drawings, vehicles, equipment, bank. Bank's an interesting one. They haven't told us that it is a credit balance, and they haven't told us we're in overdraft. So what we do is that would be a debit balance. Okay, we have balances for trading stock, sales, cost of sales, stationery, wages, water and electricity, telephone, rent income, and commission income. Now, how we start this off is first and foremost, we need to say who the ledger is for, and that is Looney Tunes Traders. Alright, now importantly, we speak about the AE oil rule. So we have our assets, our expenses, our owner's equity, our incomes, and our liabilities. Assets increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. Expenses increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. Owner's equity, the two things that affect owner's equity is capital, which we use the credit side, and drawings, where we use the debit side. We have our incomes that increase on the credit side and decrease on the debit side, as well as our liabilities, which increase on the credit side and decrease on the debit side. Now, we need to, first and foremost, before we can apply this rule, it's important that you know your theory covered in term 1 as to what accounts are classified as assets, expenses, owner's equity, incomes, and liabilities. So before applying this rule, you need to know your theory. That theory would then help you apply these rules. So now if we go down and we break it down, firstly, in our balance sheet section, we have balances. Okay? So we have our balances, and in our balance sheet section, we have our assets, our owner's equity, which is capital and drawings, and our liabilities. Okay, capital, we said capital increases owner's equity, so we use the credit side. Drawings decreases owner's equity, so we use the debit side. Vehicles is an asset which will increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. Equipment is also an asset, so the same rule applies. The same goes for bank, and the same goes for trading stock. We then get to our nominal account section, where we have totals instead of balances. And here we look at our incomes and our expenses. Alright, so here sales is an income which increases on the credit side. Remember, in the nominal account section, we only use one side of the ledger. Okay? All incomes, will be credit, and all expenses will be on the debit side, where each of them increase. So if we go in and have a look, cost of sales is an expense, so debit side. Stationery, an expense, so debit side. Wages, expense, so debit side. Water and electricity, expense, debit side. Telephone, expense, debit side. Rent income is an income, so we use the credit side. and commission income is an income, so we use the credit side. Now, if we go up and we have a look, we start off each account with a balance or a total. Now, in the balance sheet section, we start off with balances. So we are working in November. The date would be the 1st. We have our balance brought down. And the balance they have given us for capital is 88,080 Rand. So we put in our 88 and 80. We do the same thing for drawings. On November the 1st, we have our balance brought down. And the balance for drawings that they give us is 2,800 Rand. For vehicles, it's an asset, so we use the debit side. November the 1st, our balance brought down, and the amount there is 50,500. If we look at equipment, the balance they give us is 4,1800. It's the same principle, our balance brought down on November the 1st. Bank, we discussed earlier and said there would be a debit balance. We are not in overdraft. This is the money we have in our bank account, and this was 13,150. Okay. Finally, our final balance sheet section, account as trading stock, which is also an asset. We use the debit side for the balance, brought down, and our balance for trading stock, we go up and have a look, was 30,400. So we stick that in. Right, so we'll complete the balance sheet section first, and then we'll move on to our nominal accounts. Capital is when the owner gives the business money, so we receive it in our CRJ. If we go up to our CRJ and have a look, capital does not have its own column. It takes place in the sundry account for 150,000, and because it doesn't have its own column, we use the date that it took place on, which happens to be the 4th of November. So we go back down to our ledger account. The date we're using is the 4th. We've looked at the CRJ, and the amount was 150,000 Rand. Now what we need to do is think about the two accounts involved in this transaction. Yes, the owner is giving us capital, so that is the one account. We receive it in our CRJ, and it goes into our bank account as the business, so the contra account there is bank. That is capital, almost done and dusted. All that's left to do is total it, and that should give us 238,080. Drawings. This is when the owner takes out the business's money for his own personal use. It takes place in the CPJ. If we go up to our CPJ and have a look at what's going on, we'll see that drawings does not have its own column. It does, however, take place as the last transaction on the 27th for 5,200 Rand. So we can go down back to our drawings account. The amount was 5,200 Rand. The journal we looked at was the CPJ, and the date it took place on was the 27th. Now again, if we look at these two accounts, the contra account or the other involved account would be bank. So we write in the contra account bank, and what is left to do is total it up, which should give us 8,000 Rand. All right. What comes next is our vehicles account. Now, vehicles is an asset. We do pay for our vehicle though in our CPJ. So if we have a look at our CPJ, when going up, vehicles does not seem to have its own column. We look in our sundry account, and it takes place for 25,000 Rand on the 16th from Speedy Gonzalez. So we go back down to our ledger account. The date we use is the 16th. The amount was 25,000 Rand. And our contra account there, because we're paying for it, we take money out of our bank to purchase or pay off the vehicle we have bought, and the contra account there is bank. All that is left to do there, guys, is total it up, which should give us 75,500. Now, equipment gets treated the same as vehicles. We pay for equipment from the CPJ. If we go up and we have a look in our CPJ, equipment again does not have its own column. It does, however, happen in the sundry accounts for 25,000 Rand on the 11th from Pinky and Brain. So we go back down to the equipment account. We put in our 25,000 Rand. The date was the 11th from Pinky and Brain, and the contra account is bank. We are taking money out of our bank account to purchase equipment. Thus, equipment is increasing. What's left to do there is total up, which should give us 66,800 Rand. Bank. Now, bank is a complicated one, or could be a complicated one, depending on how you look at it. Bank is an asset that increases on the debit side and decreases on the credit side. Now, if we look at when bank increases, that would be all the money that the business receives or has in its bank account. As it stands, we have 13,150 Rand in our account. There's two things that affect bank. Like I said, all the money that we receive. If we are receiving money, then bank is increasing. So we have our total receipts on our debit side. Okay, total receipts would come from the CRJ, and bank has its own column in the CRJ, so we use the last day of the month. We also then have total payments. Okay, bank does have its own column in the CPJ, so we use our total payments from the CPJ. And now all we need to go is look up in our CPJ and our CRJ. Firstly, in our CRJ, our total receipts is 197,350 Rand. So we go and put in our 197,350 Rand. Okay, we then look at our total payments from our CPJ, and this is 83,000 Rand, the total of the bank column. So that is all the money that we have paid, 83,000 Rand. So now we need to balance this account. In order to do so, we need to look at the money that we have or received and the money that we have paid. Now, assuming we didn't have any expenses, we look at what is bigger. Now, the bigger side here would be our debit side. If we add up our balance of 13,150 and our total receipts of 197,350, we would have 210,500 Rand. This is assuming we have no expenses. However, we do have 83,000 Rand worth of expenses. So we need to take across our 210,500. Alright, the money we would have had if there were no expenses. And we minus our 83,000 Rand worth of expenses, which would leave us with a bank balance of 127,500 Rand. This becomes our balance carried down. Remember, carried down is in the same month. And because we need to carry it down and we have that money in our bank account, we start off on December 1st on the debit side with our balance brought down of 127,500. Trading stock is an asset that works in the same way as bank. Okay, firstly, we have our balance that we've put in. We have 30,400 Rand of stock available on hand that we can sell. Two things affect our trading stock. Firstly, our assets trading stock increases. That is when we purchase more stock. And our asset of trading stock decreases when we sell trading stock. Now, when we purchase trading stock, we need to look in the CPJ. And when we sell trading stock, we need to look in the CRJ. Firstly, let's start with us purchasing stock. If we go up to our CRJ, if we go up to our CPJ, where we purchase stock, there's a trading stock column, so that's all the money we've purchased for trading stock, or all the trading stock we've purchased, and the total amount of trading stock that we buy is 10,600 Rand. So we go back down to our debit side. Our contra account is bank. We've paid money for 10,600 Rand worth of trading stock, and trading stock did have its own column, so we used the 30th. When we sell stock, we look at the amount of stock that we have sold, and this comes from the cost of sales column in the CRJ. So let's quickly write in the date. It's November the 30th. Cost of sales has its own column in the CRJ. If we go in and have a look, our cost of sales column, the total is 30,700 Rand. So the total amount of stock that we sold in the month of November was 30,700 Rand. What we need to do there is put in the contra account. Our contra account for trading stock is cost of sales. So that is our contra account again when selling trading stock, cost of sales. Now, same principle as bank, we see which side is bigger. So assuming we don't sell any trading stock, this would be our bigger side. We add those together, our balance of 3,400 and the stock we purchased, and that gives us 41,000 Rands worth of stock. We pull that figure across. So during the month of November, we ended up having 41,000 Rand worth of stock. However, we then sold 30,700 Rand worth of stock. Now, what is left there is for us to balance this account, and we go 41,000 minus 30,700, and that leaves us with 10,300 Rand worth of trading stock. This means that it is our balance carried down. At the end of November, we have 10,300 Rand worth of trading stock to sell, which means at the start of December, our balance brought down would be 10,300 Rand, meaning we have 10,300 Rand worth of stock available to sell at the start of December. Now moving on to our nominal account section, we have our incomes and our expenses. Let's go in and put our totals in. On November the 1st, remember all incomes take place on the credit side. We have our total brought down, and the total they give us for sales is 46,420. So we go down and we put in our 46,420 Rand. Cost of sales is an expense. We go to November the 1st. We look at our total brought down. And if you guys turn back, I've got the notes in front of me. Our total brought down is 10,300 Rand for cost of sales. So we stick that in. We then have stationery, again, which is an expense. So November the 1st, on the debit side, we have our total brought down, and the total brought down for stationery is 2,100 Rand. Wages, also an expense, we start off November the 1st, our total brought down, and that gives us 4,200 Rand is what they've given us. We have water and electricity, also an expense. So on the debit side, November the 1st, balance brought down, sorry, not balance, I'm sleeping here. We're in the nominal account section, so we have our total brought down, and they give us a total of 2,050 Rand. Our telephone account, again, it's an expense, so we use the debit side. November the 1st, total brought down, and the total they give us for telephone is 1,500 Rand. Rent income, sorry guys, if we have a look at rent income, which is an income on November the 1st, our total brought down is, sorry I've lost my notes here, our total brought down for rent income is 4,300 Rand. Remember, income's on the credit side. Commission income, again it's an income. On November the 1st we have our total brought down, and our total for commission income was 20,000 Rand. Alright, now what we need to do, remember incomes and expenses either take place in the CRJ or CPJ. So expenses will take place in the CRJ, sorry, expenses all take place in the CPJ, and incomes all take place in the CRJ. So if we look at sales, which is an income, we would need to go look at our CRJ. If we have a look in our CRJ, sales has its own account, own column, so we use the last day of the month, and the amount is 36,840 Rand. So what we go down to do in sales is we put in our 36,840. We need to have the folio, which is from our CRJ. Sales has its own column in the CRJ. And what we need to do is think about the two accounts involved. Now, when we sell trading stock, we have two accounts involved for money in. That is our bank, because bank is increasing, people have paid us, and we have sales. We are working in the sales account, so the contra account to sales is bank. We aren't finished there. All we need to do is total these two up, which should give us 83,260. Let's just double check that with a calculator. $83,260. Now, cost of sales. Remember, our contra account for cost of sales is trading stock. So, if we look at this account, cost of sales is an expense. In this case, we look at the amount of stock that we have sold. We're looking at stock out. So this would be from the CRJ, it's an exception. Alright. We then have a look at trading stock as our contra account. And what we need to do is go to our CRJ, where we have a cost of sales column on November the 30th, and we sell 30,700 Rand worth of stock. So we stick in our 3,700. We total that up, which should give us 41,000 rand. Alright, that's cost of sales done and dusted. Now what we need to do is look at our stationery. Now stationery, we then look at stationery, guys, sorry. Stationery, again, it's an expense. Expenses take place in the CPJ. So if we go up to our CPJ and have a look, we do have stationery, which does have its own column. It takes place on the last day of the month, or we use the last day of the month because it has its own column, and the amount was 1,400 rand. So we put in our 1,400 rand, and our contra account there would be bank as we purchase stationery. We add those up, and it gives us a total of 3,500 rand. Wages, again, it's an expense from the CPJ. We are paying for it, so our contra account is bank. It does have its own column in the CPJ. If we go up and have a look, our total of our wages column is 7,800 rand. We stick that in our 7,800. We add them up, and it should give us 8,000. I'm being a dodo here, guys. It is 12,000. Alright, water and electricity, same story. It's an expense. So we have our contra account, which is bank. We pay for water and electricity in the CPJ. And our total for water and electricity, which takes place on the 11th, is 6,000 rand. So we go down to our water and electricity. We put in our 6,000 rand. It takes place on the 11th. We add them up, and it should give us 8,050 rand. Telephone, same story. It's an expense from the CPJ. We pay for our expense telephone. It doesn't have its own account, so we need to go up and have a look. Telephone takes place here on the 24th, and it's for 2,000 rand. So what we do is, on the 24th, we put in our 2,000, we total it up to give us 3,500 rand. Rent income, we back to income, we receive money in the CRJ. Our contra account here is bank. Money goes into the business's bank account. If we go up to our CRJ, we'll find that rent income takes place in sundry on the 5th. So we use the date, which is the 5th, and the amount was 4,000 rand. We stick that in. We total it up to give us 8,300 rand. Sorry guys, I see we lost it there for a second. So our total for our rent income was 8,300 rand. Finally, commission income. Again, it's an income that we find in the CRJ. What we would need to do, oh, I see it's slow now. What we would need to do is go up to our CRJ and have a look at where commission income takes place. It does take place on the 26th, on our final day, for 6,510 rand. So we put in our 6,510 rand. Our contra account is bank because we've received that commission income in the business's bank account, and the date is the 26th. We add that up, and it should give us 26,510 rand. And that is activity 7 done and dusted. Now, yes, this applies to activity 7, but it's a good video to revise the general ledger and what we do in the general ledger. Alright? Please guys, study hard. You have a big exam coming up. Remember, it's accounting theory, stuff from the first term. as well as your CRJ, CPJ, transaction analysis, and the general ledger. Cool guys, cheers.